I meditated for 36 hours in 3 days when I went to a 3-day Vipassana meditation course. This was 3 days of stillness, of silence, of seeing reality as it is. For those who are new, Vipassana means to see reality as it is. And I've done a 10-day course before, so this was nothing hard, nothing out of the ordinary, but it was my first 3-day course. And I came into it just thinking it was going to be a top up, it was just going to be something to fuel me up for a little bit, get away from the hustle and bustle of a regular weekend with all the chores and all the friends and family and all of this stuff, right? I was like, I just want to go take a little break, have some meditation in. And I didn't treat it as a big thing because I'm like, okay, it's not a 10-day course. It is not a 14-day course, which is the last one I went to back in September, was a 14-day course. And if you haven't checked out that video, go take a look. That video goes so deep into the war between our mind and between our mind, our subconscious mind and our conscious mind. So go check that out if you haven't. It goes much deeper. And for the beginner people as well, just to people who are like, okay, insight meditation, insight into the nature of reality, to see reality as it is, I have an analogy that really explains how this works. And so in Vipassana, what you're literally doing, the object of concentration, are sensations in your body, right? So you make your awareness a few inches in diameter and you're scanning sensations in your body. Subtle sensations, gross sensations, itchiness, scratchiness, your molecules working, like it goes into, just the life happening in you, observing all of this. And so how does that make you see reality as it is? And how does it teach you about reality? Because your body's not reality, right? It's a part of reality, but I wouldn't call this reality, right? And so the analogy I have to that made it make sense for me is you're watching a movie, right? Let's say you're watching The Avengers. The Avengers is a superhero movie. There's, Iron Man and Spider-Man and, the latest one, Doctor Strange and Captain America, all these characters, and they're fighting a villain and there's all these scenes and all of this happening. And there's a director of the movie, right? The director of the movie was the architect of the movie, chose the scenes and put it together and did the cuts and created the movie as it is, but you never see the director on screen, right? You never, in the movie, the Avengers can point to and say, well, he made it. The director oftentimes is not in the movie, yet has directed, orchestrated, designed, implemented, all of that good stuff, right? Director made it. And so by watching The Avengers, you get to learn indirectly about the director. You get to see what kind of tastes, what kind of thinking, you learn about the director, even if you're not doing it intentionally, right? You don't go to watch a movie and you're like, all right, what was this person, this director thinking, unless you do that, which is totally fine. So Vipassana is kind of the same way, right? Where you're observing the scene of your physical body. And now the question is, who is directing this physical body? And of course, the answer is reality, right? There's the universe, there's these molecules, they're following the rules of electromagnetic and gravity and all the laws of physics, basically. All of that created by reality, an extension of reality, and that orchestrator, right, is creating the scenes that you're watching when you're meditating and you're just scanning. And so although you're just observing physical sensations, you're indirectly learning about the orchestrator. And now I'm talking about reality as if it's a person or something, but, just the general gist of there is the reality, and as a function of it is our bodies. And when we observe our mind and body, and we are observing it objectively, and I would go to argue to say the only thing you can observe objectively is your physical body, because when you're observing your thoughts and your emotions or anything you make up in your mind, there's a lot of subjectivity to it. Whereas, my hand is my hand. There's not really much subjectivity to it. And so that is how Vipassana gives you insight into the nature of reality, right? That was a long way of explaining this point. So back to the 3-day course. And this was really a phenomenal course because I did not really expect how amazing it was going to affect my life. Even when I was on the course, right? Even on day 3, like even on the last day, I'm, meditating, and then for a few hours in the afternoon, you're allowed to talk to people. I didn't even really appreciate how impactful this 3-day course was going to be, because I was comparing it to a 10-day course, and I was like, well, I didn't go as deep. Of course, you're not going to go as deep, meditating for 3 days, versus 10 days. You're just going to get much deeper on the 10-day course. And so not that I brushed it off or anything, but I was like, this was good. It gave me what I needed. But it wasn't until I came home and I started reflecting, and kind of not even reflecting, like sitting down and thinking about it, but just having realizations. And these realizations just showed me how impactful the 3-day course was. And so I'm going to talk about that right now, and like all the points that came. So what really surprised me on the course, even before we get into the juicy stuff of after the course, was how deep I could go in just 2.5 days, right? Because the last half, I think starting at like 3 p.m. on the 3rd day, you can start to talk to people. And, you still have your meditation session at 6 to 7 and the discourse and all that good stuff. And so you had 2.5 days of serious meditation. And, those first 2 days I was doing more like, 13, 14 hours, like basically from, 4:30 to 5 a.m. all the way through to like 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. Anyway, how far I was able to go was really surprising for how short it was, right? Just the level of depth, right? The level of depth. So usually if you've been on a 10-day course, you'll know the first day, your mind is still roaring. There's so much of life still on you. You're still thinking about all these things. You're thinking about everything that's happened and for quite a while, the last few months. And so there's just a lot of thinking that your mind does, because you now have a whole day where you did not talk, you are not consuming a phone, you're not watching videos, you're not scrolling, you're not talking to people, you're not doing nothing, you're not working. And so it's hard to get a day like that in the regular world, right? Even on people's weekends, it's like, oh, I'm going to go watch some TV, I'm going to go socialize, I'm going to do some chores. There's always, stuff that you're doing. And so that first day, just so much processing, mental processing of things that happened. And then the second day was really powerful. And it was a day that I could work really hard, because I already had a day of my mind continuously interrupting me and just going back and forth. And so the second day, I was able to go much deeper. I was able to just like focus a little more, have more sustained periods of concentration, less distraction. Did distractions all go away? No, absolutely not. They were still there, but they lessened, right? They decreased from the first day, because I already burned through so much of it on the first day. So the second day I was able to go to just a really deep place to be like, oh yeah, I remember this feeling, right? I remember this depth. I remember this bliss, right? I remember this joy, and I remember this wisdom. I remember, just having a meal and not reaching for my phone. Like the first day, you don't even have your phone on these courses, but like the ghost reach, on the first day, I like sit down with my food and it's like my hand just automatically is like, where's my phone? And then of course on the course, you don't have your phone. But like by the second day, there was none of that. There was no ghost reaching, my impulses. A lot on my phone, actually, it's like, oh, I go to the bathroom, I'm trying to reach on the first day, or like on the first day, it's like, oh, what is that person doing? And kind of like my mind's so curious as I would be in the outside world. But by the second world, I was like, okay, I'll ignore people. My phone impulse went away, and I was just able to have much more sustained meditations. And this was the first time that I just really started to appreciate the little things, because I knew tomorrow it was going to end, right? Like I knew the third day and then that would be it, right? I'd go home at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. On the next day after the third day. And that really made me appreciate and like work harder, because I was like, okay, it's day 2. I literally have one more day, and like only like the first 2/3 of the day at that. Because I think at like 3 we started talking. So from like 4 to 3, still a good 11 hours, 10 hours or something, plus a meditation later on in the evening. And so that made me work even a little harder than the 10-day course, because the 10-day course on day 2, I would still be pacing myself. I would know I have 8 more days ahead. I don't got to work that hard. And I mean, I still do work hard, but it was just more like there was no time sensitive. It's kind of like when a deadline is coming, I just work harder naturally. Is there's a deadline, I'm going to like work harder. And so that's kind of what the day 2 was. And it was different than day 2 on the 10-day course. And my cats, my cats are, I have 2 new cats that I'm introducing to each other, and they're still a little feisty. And so basically that sadness made me work harder. And then working harder, I was able to go a bit deeper. And one of like the biggest breakthroughs, which was so simple at that time, and this is part of earlier when I said I didn't even really realize how deep it was, is I was able to just kind of see how my mind progressed from, day 1 to day 2. So it really reminded me how consistent daily practice transforms the mind, and as I reflect back, I started this serious meditation stint almost 5 years ago, back in 2020, and it's 2025. I guess it's been 5 years now. I should make a video being like, 5 years of meditation. So this will be a little sneak peek of that. So I noticed just how my mind has transformed through those 5 years. It's very subtle, right? Almost to the extent that you don't notice it, because the change happens so slowly over such a long period of time. But then you look back and you're like, holy moly, I'm completely different. And so on day 2, just as my mind was deepening, right, as I was getting subtler, as I was getting more concentrated, as I was going deeper into reality, that journey just reminded me that on the day-to-day practice, right, it's only 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening. So of course, you're not going to go as deep as doing 12, 13, 14 hours of meditation in a day, right? It's just the math. You're not going to go as deep. But those 1 hour in the day, 1 hour in the morning, across months and across years, really start to chip away at all the hard places around you. For instance, on the 10-day course or the 3-day course, because you're doing 14 hours, 12, 14, however long, you get to cut so deep, so fast, and you really go in, if you reflect back on your 10-day course, if you compare your like day 1 mind to your day 8 mind, completely different mental states, understandings, awareness, just the quality of your inner mind, completely different. And if you haven't, just take my word for it. And so on the reflecting on just the journey, and I was able to only see it on the second day of the 3-day course, was how much my mind has changed with 2 hours of daily practice for 5 years. And it's a profound change, and it mirrors the kind of journey you take when you are doing the 3-day or the 10-day course. Just as your mind on the 10-day course, day by day, gets subtler and subtler and deeper and more sensitive and sharper, and more aware and all of that good stuff you can kind of tell day by day. It's the same in life, right? It's the same in the daily practice. Although the angle isn't like this, like on a 10-day course, it's kind of just slowly, barely, hard to tell that it is actually going down. And so that it just clicked in me that, wow, this practice is really, really changing me. And the other thing that it really taught me, this 3-day course, was to build that sensitivity to enjoy the little things. Because even though meditating 2 hours a day for 5 years, it's like my ability to enjoy the small moments, to just take a mindful moment. I never, let's say I was developing that, but I reached the next level on this 3-day course. How? I don't know. It just happened. Maybe it was just the right time and the right place and it just clicked. But since then, I think I took this a couple weeks ago. It is currently May 27th. And it's actually almost been a month since I did the 3-day course. I've just noticed I'm much more able to take my time with things, to slow down, to not reach for my phone and actually, I'm overwhelmed at work or I'm stressed. I'm gonna go take 10 minutes to go meditate, right? It's like these little things I've started to add into my life because I've now noticed the power of just small efforts, right? That's what the 3-day course taught me. It's not as much effort as a 10-day course, of course not. It's not as much effort as a 14-day course that, I did back in September. And I'm going to do a 20-day course and a 30-day course. The 3-day course is not as much effort. But even that little effort can bring big transformations. And that really clicked for me, right? It doesn't have to be like a big thing that you have to do. It could be something little. And then the other thing is I started to notice just in my sit, the subtle yet big changes that happen. And in my sit, I mean literally, let's say I meditate from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. I would notice, okay, this is how I'm feeling at 8 a.m. And as I tune in, just the instant I sit down and close my eyes and focus on my breath or start scanning my body, I notice immediately the change that's happening. And as I'm going minute by minute and honestly second by second, I'm noticing the shifts in my mind as I'm observing the sensations. And I'm noticing how my mind is transforming in the practice, right? Before it was like I would go in to meditate. An hour later, would pass. I'm, struggling, distracted, pulling back, and gentleness, and the whole, the whole meditation thing. And then it would be at the end, and at the end I would be like, yeah, I feel good. I felt good. That was worth it. Even if there were turmoils, even if, whatever it might be, generally at the end I would be like, yeah, that felt really good. Now I'm noticing just second by second how that transformation happens in my mind as I'm still focused on the sensation. So it's like my awareness is expanding or maybe just becoming more sensitive to these small shifts that are happening. And I think it's the 3-day course that unlocked this, to just be able to say, okay, look, the big change that happens from day 1 to day 10 on a 10-day course is not as close to what happens in your daily sitting as from day 1 to day 3 on a 3-day course, right? And of course, on a 3-day course, meditating for 36 plus hours, of course, you're going to go much deeper than doing 1 hour in the morning. But it's still much closer. And so I feel like that closeness really helped me unlock this sensitivity of my mind to be able to see, okay, how is my mind changing? How is this transformation happening? And so now my thoughts and my emotions and my cravings in my daily life just feel a little clearer. Like I have a little better grasp on them and how they slowly change me until I make the decision. So for example, it's like I will feel, I'll just use my phone example. I'm always using that example because I've struggled a lot with it in the past, and now I'm making some headway. I'm making some amazing headway on it. Before I would even think, bam, my phone's in my face. There's external triggers now. Oh, I sit down. Bam, where's the phone? I come in the house, bam, the phone. I sit down at work, bam, where's the phone, right? Oh, it's my break at work, bam, here's the phone. And so I wasn't even thinking about it, right? It's like the instinct to just take my phone was so fast I couldn't even comprehend it. But now, because of this 3-day course, I'm a little more sensitive to like this, as this instinctual drive, I think that's a word, kicks up to go pick up the phone. I can just catch it a little more. I see a little more of it. And I want to say I've been a lot better with my phone. Not perfect still. But this past month, I've just been really, really good at it, and I want to celebrate that. And it's the same with emotions. I would have conversations. I used to have this need to always want to be right, to always want to, you know, I guess it's a little bit of ego, but there was a need for me, kind of an impatience where it's like, I want you to already know what I know because I know it's going to benefit you because it benefits me. And it's not like, oh, I'm not listening to reasoning or anything. It's like in the midst of having reasoning, obviously my reasoning's better. And then it's like, I'm impatient for them to accept me. And then that impatience makes me a little frustrated. And then at a certain point, I'm like, why are we even having this conversation if you're not listening? And so basically, like with this kind of emotion and other emotions, I'm noticing a lot more when they just first are starting, like when they're first whispering before they start to develop into kind of shutting down. I'm starting to notice them and I'm starting to be like, here they are. And like the subtlety is where it's at. Not that I was like some angry guy that you couldn't have a convo with, but just the subtlety that I have come to on this 3-day course to be aware of even the little things has been really transformative. And there was one story that I remember. I'm going to keep this one short because the video is already 24 minutes. But I met this one guy, and I always love Metta Day on any course because you get to hear all these people that have been meditating in silence with you, what has been going on in their mind and what their experience is. And I think it's such a beautiful day and a beautiful way to express things with each other. And so basically, he told me, he did a 10-day course long time ago, like 10 years ago. I don't know if that's a long time ago. And he said he left on day 7. Now, already my mind was like, yeah, it's hard, I wasn't saying this out loud, but I was like, yeah, it's hard, I get it. And then I was like, why'd you leave? Of course you asked that. And he said, because I felt so good. And I was like, what? What do you mean you felt so good, right? Usually the answer is I was having a hard time, all of this stuff, and people leave. And he's like, I felt so good. And in my mind, I was like, yeah, that's our mind, you feel good and then you think it's going to be permanent and you think, well, this is the path to get out of suffering. And the end goal is you're out of suffering and happy. Therefore, I'm happy right now. I have completed the path, and then he left. And then life was like, well, actually, you did not complete the path and you have not eradicated all your suffering. You had some bliss, you had some good feelings, but that ain't it. So he came back, of course, and and I thought that was just a really funny story. So if you've already done a 10-day course, I'd highly recommend a 3-day course. It's actually really powerful in a different way. And I feel like if you just did a 10-day course, you might not have the same experience as me of like really just unlocking a more subtle layer and all this wisdom and stuff that I'm talking about in this course. I feel like that honestly came because of the consistencies that I've had for the last 5 years. But you'll still love it. I know it'll still benefit you, so definitely check it out. And if you have not done a 10-day course, you cannot do a 3-day course as your first course. So definitely do a 3-day course. And I'll be doing as many as I can moving forward, like at least once a year, because it's easy to fit in like a 3-day course. It's over the weekend, pretty much, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Well, it's 2 work days, but it's definitely easier to take off 2 days than 10 days. But I'm going to be doing both. So check it out. This practice really is just teaching me things on subtler and subtler levels. And it just reminds me of what Goenka says, you start at the gross and you just go subtler and subtler and subtler until the subtlest. And then you go beyond even the subtlest. And I'm really, really seeing that on on a much deeper level. And this 3-day course was a big part of that. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.